Hello, my friends. It's Monday, August 4th, 2025, and I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, your Red State refugee, and welcome to the Radical Russ Show, coming to you from Rolla J Studios in my undisclosed mountain hideaway in the beautiful state of Jefferson region of Southern Oregon. On this week's smoke session, molesters are getting amnesty as Trump moves pedophile pimp Ghislaine Maxwell to Club Fed. Texas re-gerrymanders their maps for Trump, and the Ivy League continues paying protection money. A deep look at the fundraising inefficiency of the Democratic super PACs. Republicans pray for rain, lie for porn, and are disgusted that you're upset they make money on stocks. A San Francisco coffee shop rug pulls their workers. PornHub bans Idaho, so Idahoans download VPNs. And what would the left's Stephen Miller do? But before we get to all that serious political stuff, just three quick hits. We begin again this week with remembrances of people who have passed, and first and foremost, I want to offer my condolences to the family and friends and colleagues of Richard Lee. He was the founder of Oaksterdam University in the Bay Area of San Francisco and one of the premier activists in the marijuana legalization movement. He was the chief petitioner of a marijuana legalization attempt in 2010. I previewed him. I promoted him as the High Times Freedom Fighter of the Month back in October of 2010 is when I first wrote about him. And in my podcasting career, I had the chance to interview him a few times and speak with him at various events. Richard was in a wheelchair from an accident, and he went and used medical cannabis in the Bay Area, and his discovery that he is originally from Texas and had moved from Texas to California for his discovery of how medical cannabis would help him. He didn't want to stay in Texas where he could continue to be criminalized for that. His mother, Ann Lee, late Ann Lee, was also a fantastic activist as she learned from her son about the benefits of medical cannabis. So we remember Richard Lee and dedicate today's show to his memory, which also we are in August 4th right now, which means we are smack dab in the middle of the days between. The Grateful Dead culture knows all about the days between the birth date of Jerry Garcia on August 1st and the death date of Jerry Garcia on August 9th. So in celebration of the days between, my interstitial music this week is going to be bass lines from various Grateful Dead tunes. Let's hope nobody sues me. And speaking of people who passed away, someone from my childhood memories and the poster on my wall, Loni Anderson, the actress who is best known for her role as Jennifer Marlowe, the sexy blonde secretary in the show WKRP in Cincinnati, passed away at the age of 79. So in lieu of doing a Grateful Dead interstitial, let's go out with my little dedication to Loni Anderson. Baby, if you've ever wondered whatever became of me, I'm living on the air in Cincinnati, WKRP. Got kinda tired of packing and unpacking, town to town, up and down the dial. Maybe you and me were never meant to be, just maybe think of me once in a while. I'm at WKRP in Cincinnati. Our main story continues to be the Guardians of Pedophiles Party, the GOP, doing everything they can now to protect Trump from the release of the Epstein files. We've already had the House going into break early, which is we're now in the regular time for their break. Won't be coming back till September. And by then, perhaps they can have the cover-up all ratcheted down. We've been hearing rumors of burn bags at the Department of Justice. They're trying to destroy any evidence here. And it's just what a ham-handed cover-up we have going on here, because we know from their own reporting that they've had 1,000 FBI agents going over these files. And so what are the chances out of 1,000 people, there could be one or two still left with enough of a conscience to be able to speak up on the behalf of victims, on the behalf of these children who were trafficked by the pedophile pimp Jeffrey Epstein and his pedophile pimp playmate Ghislaine Maxwell. And the movement of Ghislaine Maxwell this week, it just further solidified, but like everything you would possibly do to show the people you are in those files, that you are trying to cover up your own perfidy and that of other high, powerful people, Prince Andrew perhaps, Bill Clinton perhaps, Bill Gates perhaps. Seems the pedophilia is pretty widespread throughout the upper echelons, and maybe we should apologize to QAnon while we're at it. QAnon was always talking about there was this terrible cabal of high-ranking Democratic elites that were engaged in a global sex trafficking ring. Maybe it was just they were aiming a little too narrowly by just describing Democrats. Maybe there is something to this global pedophile sex trafficking ring. We already had the convictions of Jeffrey Epstein on a number of these counts, his mysterious suicide behind bars. CBS News has been poring over the little bit of video that we've had released from the one camera that wasn't even facing his cell, and already are finding all sorts of discrepancies in that footage. They found a discrepancy with the resolution of the footage tending to jump. And this is something that happens. I recognize this because it happens in my editing sometimes. When you're doing a screen capture of something, and you take your mouse and you click and you drag from the top left corner to the bottom right corner to get the whole screen, right? Well, sometimes when you do that, you don't quite start in the 0,0 position at the very top left corner. Sometimes you're off a pixel or two when you draw your big box. And so you don't notice it when you're putting it all together until you see it in the post and you're watching a static screen and it suddenly jumps a pixel or two. That's what's going on there. So they were doing screen captures rather than giving the actual original file. They've also found a mysterious orange blob, kind of, which would be someone perhaps in an orange jumpsuit going up the stairs toward Epstein's cell at like 4 a.m. They're just opening up more questions than it answers. And of course, all the answers could be found if they would just release this information. The GOP continues to pretend they're trying to protect the victims. Oh, we wouldn't want anything bad to get out about the victims. Meanwhile, numerous victims of Epstein have already testified, have already gone public, have already described the horror of sexual abuse and trafficking and bribery and extortion and threats that they lived under when dealing with this. And so now Ghislaine Maxwell gets moved to this Club Fed. Numerous people online have pointed out that, by the way, maybe that's not a good move from her perspective. It's a lot easier to get shanked in a Club Fed than it is to get shanked at a maximum security prison, where they're a little tighter on what sort of things people can get their hands on and how much supervision they're given. Anyway, one way or another, it looks like Ghislaine Maxwell's getting out of this, either through the gates of hell or through a pardon or commutation. And so we have this MAGA party now, the Molesters Are Getting Amnesty party, the GOP, the guardians of pedophiles. And if Democrats can't jump on this and point out and show day after day, I mean, you can't go a day on the social media feed on Blue Sky without some molester, some pedophile, some rapist being put up on screen who's a Christian youth camp counselor or some sheriff's deputy or some Republican operative or Republican elected official. You don't even need to connect the dots. The picture's already drawn for you. The Republicans had a molester as the Speaker of the House. Denny Hastert. Go look it up. For 8 years, he was Speaker of the House. This guy was raping little boys. So how is it that we've gone this far in this scandal without Democrats raising holy hell about the GOP protecting pedophiles? It's like the one crack in the armor that appears over the past 4 years. The last crack was back at January 6th, right? So since then, Teflon Don's been pretty much impenetrable, and this one rift develops in his MAGA base of the true blue QAnon anti-pedophile people who thought Donald Trump was the one who's going to bring down the elite pedophile ring, now starting to wake up to the fact that he is the elite pedophile ring. And Democrats can't go for the jugular there. Democrats can't attack on it. They feel like it's unseemly. They feel like it's wrestling around in the muck. This is politics. It's all muck. Get down in the muck and take down the pedophile rapists. How hard is this? I mean, you got Donald Trump, who's got more pedophile friends then I've got friends. Literally. He's hanging out with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. He invites the Tate brothers. He gets the Tate brothers out from Romania. These assaulters. The P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, pimp bastard. That guy. He's even floating the idea of getting a pardon to P. Diddy. Who knows this many pedophiles? Who knows this many rapists? Except other rapists and pedophiles, right? He had Lawrence Taylor at the White House for some reason that Lawrence Taylor doesn't even know.
I don't know why. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing, but I'm here to serve, and I'm here to serve you. Okay, so I'm going to do the best I can for as long as I can. Thank you very much.
I mean, come on. Lawrence Taylor is known for two terrible things. And the lesser terrible thing is breaking Joe Theismann's leg live on national TV. The greater awful thing is raping a 16-year-old. So there you go. Lawrence Taylor fits in perfect with the pedophile protection crew over there in the White House. The other news coming out, Trump continues to dig his own grave on this story. When he was asked on Air Force One about the falling out with Jeffrey Epstein, he claims it was because of Virginia Giuffre, the woman who recently suicided, allegedly suicided. She had put up tweets saying she would never suicide, and powerful people wanted her dead. Wish there was more investigation into that. But anyway, Virginia Giuffre, when he was 16 years old, was working at Mar-a-Lago in the spa. And apparently the problem was that Jeffrey Epstein went and stole her, quote, stole her, end quote, according to Trump. Talking about a 16-year-old being stolen. And of course, someone called out at one of the press conferences, what did you think Jeffrey Epstein was stealing her for? And Trump wants to play this as if, oh, that was the terrible thing. You know, he had a falling out with Jeffrey Epstein. That was 2000. He didn't have his falling out with Jeffrey Epstein until like 2007. I'm sorry, 2004 was the, well, I'm getting my dates mixed up perhaps, but it was years later. It was years later before he had his alleged falling out with Jeffrey Epstein. So talking about a 16-year-old here, confirming what Virginia Giuffre had said many times, is that she was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein to be pimped out to all of these rich and powerful men from Mar-a-Lago. And one of the folks I follow online put it like, what this is really boiling down to is this is a fight between two pimps. The two guys were running global sex trafficking operations down there in Florida, and they just had a fight over personnel. Over their commodity. That's what they're fighting about. There's a pimp fight. It's just disgusting. And it becomes more disgusting day after day, knowing that we live in a country where this is not new stuff, right? It's just breaking into MAGA world. Like Fox News the other day, they had 117 mentions of Obama and 2 mentions of Epstein, right? Like they're not even talking about it. And they're proving the point that Roger Ailes made in the making of Fox News. The whole reason why they created the whole Fox News info structure was they wanted to make sure that if a scandal happened, like Watergate happened to Richard Nixon, that Nixon would be able to survive it, that there'd be this alternate media ecosphere that would steer people out of the scandal, not pay attention to the scandal, diminish the scandal, and be able to protect the Republican in office. And boy, is it working. Because you still have these MAGA types out there, and they're going to get to the point right now. Right now they're in the let's tender them up for the Ghislaine Maxwell pardon. That's what let's soften the base here. Ghislaine was just a victim. Oh, that Jeffrey Epstein, he was a terrible pedophile pimp, and he seduced and coerced Ghislaine Maxwell, and she didn't do anything terrible. Folks, she was just as terrible, if not worse. She was the one befriending these young girls, getting their trust to be able to turn them over to Jeffrey Epstein. She was in the rooms when some of the molestation and rapes were happening. She placed her hands on these young girls. She was just as culpable. She was convicted alongside of Jeffrey Epstein. They're going to try to make her out to be the victim, try to soften this up. And the next step is going to be, 16 and 17-year-olds, that's not like pedophilia. Yeah, that's wrong. You shouldn't do it. But it's not like these girls didn't know what they were doing. Trump is successfully turning this party into a party of abusers with the same logic of abusers. Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. DARVO is what they call that. But this isn't new information. This information has been out since Trump rode down the escalator in 2015. It's the kind of thing that should have been covered much more in depth by our news media. But they don't cover things anymore as far as trying to go out and find out what the truth is. What they cover is who said what. This guy said it's raining. This guy said it's not raining. It's not our job to see whether it's actually raining. So in the absence of a Democratic Party that will go for the jugular, that will attack on these personal character issues, on these morality issues, the failure to attack Donald Trump, even when the Access Hollywood tape came out, it was just kind of soft pedaled. Of course, didn't help that the New York Times and James Comey went and redirected with the whole butthurt emails scandal, which seems so quaint in comparison these days. But it takes attacks from the left, it takes attacks from Democrats to be able to keep this story going and to give the media this permission structure they have to be able to say, oh, we're not saying Trump's a rapist. It's this Democrat over here that says Trump's a rapist. That needs to be every day. Trump is a rapist. Trump is a pedophile. Trump is protecting pimps and abusers. He is the worst nightmare of QAnon right there in front of you. No conspiracy, no secret veiled agendas. It's right there, obviously in front of you. That was something I'd heard on another podcast. I think it was maybe The Bulwark, where he was talking to one of the people that was abused by Trump, former model for Sports Illustrated, and her name escapes me at the moment. I apologize. But she was discussing how Epstein brought her to Trump, and it was in this room where there was people hanging out, whatever, and Trump just goes right up and gropes her. Just grabs ass, grabs tit, just grope. And she was kind of shocked, but didn't do anything. And she described how, like, if you were alone at a party or you were somewhere, in a bar or something, and some guy came up and did that to you, she would be like, she would push him and yell and, fight back. But that Trump's genius is that he does this kind of stuff right out in public around everyone. And you kind of have this, I forget the name of the syndrome, Kitty Genovese. That's it. It's the Kitty Genovese murder from the 60s, where everybody saw this woman get murdered and nobody did anything because everybody else was looking at everyone else waiting for someone to do something. And that's kind of what happens with Trump. He just does it. Like, fuck you, stop me. I'm just going to do it. And she didn't fight back or anything because she was in that shock of, what? What's happening? This man is a scum. He is one of the worst human beings the United States of America has ever produced. Ever. I'm putting him up there with Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm putting up there John Wayne Gacy. Terrible, awful, evil, despicable, BTK level human being that Donald Trump is. We just don't see him in that same serial killer mode because he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He had hundreds of millions of dollars. He is able to conduct his sociopathy and his malignant narcissism on a whole different scale. And so I want to get to some testimony here. And before I do, this is my big content trigger flag warning for the podcast. If this description of sexual abuse is going to disturb you, skip ahead to the next chapter. Just skip ahead until you hear a bass playing, and then we'll be on another subject. So I want to bring this back to a 1994 suit against Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein by who was then known as a Jane Doe, now actually known as Katie Johnson. Allegations from 1994 when she was 13 years old. Now, this case was dropped. There's a whole story behind it. If you want to go read the whole story behind it, Google Katie Johnson Donald Trump, Katie. Katie Johnson Donald Trump. There's all sorts of strong arming. There's allegations of a producer who was trying to get a story, and they do everything they can to try to muck this up and make it seem like there's some sort of, skullduggery going on here with this lawsuit. But I believe the 13-year-old girl. I believe the 13-year-old girl in this case. So I'm just going to read from this case. Plaintiff in this case is Katie Johnson, the 13-year-old girl. Okay, so whenever I see plaintiff, in your mind, think 13-year-old girl. Plaintiff was subject to acts of rape, sexual misconduct, criminal sexual acts, sexual abuse, forcible touching, assault, battery, intentional and reckless infliction of emotional distress, duress, false imprisonment, and threats of death and or serious bodily injury by the defendants, that would be Trump and Epstein, that took place at several parties during the summer months of 1994. The parties were held by defendant Epstein at a New York City residence that was being used by defendant Epstein at 9 East 71st Street, Manhattan. During this period, plaintiff was a minor of age 13 and was legally incapable under New York law of consenting to sexual intercourse and the other sexual contacts detailed herein. The rapes in the first, second, and third degrees, sexual misconduct, criminal sexual acts in the first, second, and third degrees, sexual abuse in the first, second, and third degrees, and forcible touching. Plaintiff was enticed by promises of money and a modeling career to attend a series of parties with other similarly situated minor females held at a New York City residence that was being used by defendant Jeffrey Epstein. At least 4 of the parties were attended by defendant Trump. By this time in 1994, defendant Trump had known defendant Epstein for 7 years and knew that the plaintiff was then just 13 years old. Defendant Trump initiated sexual contact with plaintiff at 4 different parties. On the 4th and final sexual encounter with defendant Trump tied plaintiff to a bed, exposed himself to plaintiff, and then proceeded to forcibly rape plaintiff. During the course of this savage sexual attack, plaintiff loudly pleaded with defendant Trump to stop, but with no effect. Defendant Trump responded to plaintiff's pleas by violently striking plaintiff in the face with his open hand and screaming that he would do whatever he wanted. Immediately following this rape, defendant Trump threatened plaintiff that, were she ever to reveal any of the details of the sexual and physical abuse of her by defendant Trump, plaintiff and her family would be physically harmed, if not killed. Defendant Epstein had sexual contact with plaintiff at 2 of the parties. The second sexual encounter with defendant Epstein took place after plaintiff had been raped by defendant Trump. Defendant Epstein forced himself upon plaintiff and proceeded to rape her anally and vaginally, despite her loud pleas to stop. Defendant Epstein then attempted to strike plaintiff about the head with his closed fists, while angrily he screamed at the plaintiff that he, defendant Epstein, rather than defendant Trump, should have been the one who took plaintiff's virginity, before plaintiff finally managed to break away from defendant Epstein. Again, you can look all this stuff up. Katie Johnson, Donald Trump, 1994. So this is no mystery. Donald Trump has been this monster all his life. And there's going to be a whole lot more that comes out. And understand that it might not come out now. It might not come out throughout this term. But Donald Trump's going to die someday. I'd rather it were someday soon and not like Henry Kissinger 100-year-old, but he's going to die someday. And when he does, people will feel emboldened. These 1,000 FBI agents who were looking through the files, and others will be emboldened, enticed by profit motives for writing books and such, to reveal everything they knew. Because apparently the women testifying to it since 1994 haven't been enough. There's some 27 of them, I think it is, 26 plus E. Jean Carroll, who was actually adjudicated. A judge has even said so. The guy bragged about sexual assault. Grab him by the pussy. They let you do it if you're a star. And there's 77 million of you out there that voted for this monster. And I know, as more and more of this stuff comes out, we're going to see them Trump flags disappearing. And people scraping off them MAGA bumper stickers off their cars. Hiding those red Make America Great hats as it becomes obvious they empowered and supported a pedophile, that they got behind someone who abused dozens and dozens of young women and children. So I'm calling on Project Lieutenant Aldo Rain. This is what we're going to call it. Project Lieutenant Aldo Rain. Aldo Rain being the character played by Brad Pitt in the Tarantino movie Inglourious Bastards, who was upset that the Nazis after the war, it's going to be too easy for the Nazis to take off their Nazi uniforms and try to blend in and say, oh, not me, I was never a Nazi. And in the movie, Aldo Rain rectifies that situation by taking out a Bowie knife and carving a swastika scar into their foreheads so they can always be identified. Now, I'm not calling on that. Please do not take your Bowie knife and carve MAGA into the foreheads of MAGAs. Please do not do that. It is not necessary. However, for Project Lieutenant Aldo Rain, I think we ought to start collecting pictures of all these MAGAs. Many as we can. We just ought to make a MAGA bulletin board so that in the future, they can't say, not me, no, I never supported the pedophile. Because, folks, it's our failure to hold evil accountable that has been the downfall of this country. The fact that we didn't hold the Royalists accountable for not supporting the revolution, that we didn't hold the Confederates accountable, we didn't execute their leaders and disenfranchise their soldiers. The fact that we let the Ku Klux Klan fester in this country. The fact that we had Nazi sympathizers before World War II. The McCarthy hearings going at the whole Red Scare situation. All of these people have been allowed to get away with it. Been allowed to have slaps on the wrist to go back and live normal lives, as we don't want to dwell on the past and let's bring everyone together and heal. No, fuck that. Lieutenant Aldo Rain, we're going to remember you MAGAs. We're going to keep pictures of you MAGAs. And in the future, when it comes time for hiring people, come time to electing people, we'll be here with your picture to show everyone how eager you were to support a pedophile. On the national scene, the big news is the state of Texas attempting to re-gerrymander their already gerrymandered maps to squeeze out even more seats, more Republican seats for the forthcoming 2026 midterm elections. Now, all sorts of moving parts going on here. Let's see if I can break this down a little bit. First of all, you may have been thinking, wait a minute, don't we do this just every 10 years with the census? Yes, every 10 years with the census is when we normally do redistricting. Redistricting where all the states redraw their lines for their districts to determine, which district votes in which neighborhood and so forth. And then this is normally, what you'd normally have is a situation where you take a city and you chop it up into equal sizes and then you get what you get. But recently what has been going on is gerrymandering. Gerrymandering goes back a long time, goes back to the 1700s. It's named after Elbridge Gerry, a representative who drew a district that looked like a salamander. They called that a gerrymander. And the idea here is that you're trying to draw your lines in such a way that you pick just the voters you want to have in a particular district. So rather than the voters choosing the politicians choose the voters. There's been numerous cases about this, and the Supreme Court, the SCROTUS, the Supreme Court Republicans of the United States, have decided while it's against the rules to do a racial gerrymander, at least for now, while it's against the rules to draw your districts in such a way so you're trying to pack in black people or white people or Mexican people or whatever, can't do it on racial lines. But they recently decided that a partisan gerrymander, where you're just trying to pick Republicans or you're just trying to pick Democrats, is A-okay. That's just fine. That's just dandy. Now, the fact that you have in a lot of these states, the state legislature in charge of drawing the lines, well, you can see where this goes awry. You get a Republican legislature, well, they're going to draw lines that pick more Republicans. Of course they are. Democrats, on the other hand, saw this problem and saw, oh, you know what we need to do is to tie our own hands. What we need to do is to go and pass laws that say you can't do partisan gerrymandering. We'll set up these independent commissions that'll do it the right way. That'll do it in a fair way, which is a laudable goal. That's wonderful. That's awful nice. Except what it is unilateral disarmament against Republicans who couldn't give a shit about what's fair. They care about winning elections. So we have a situation where Texas now, their legislature's already redrawn the maps. Here's the new maps, King Trump, that'll give you another 5 seats. And there's a silver lining to this, by the way. I don't want to forget this before I get off it. There's a silver lining to this in that they're trying to squeeze out more seats for the midterms. It tells me that the voting isn't as fixed as they want it to be. They don't have the voting machines and the tabulators all corralled like they'd like to be sure about winning this next midterm. So they're going to squeeze out another 5 seats this way. The fact that they're having to do this gives me some hope that our elections are somewhat free and fair. Well, I've been reading some posts lately. I decided not to bring it to today's podcast, but we'll get to it at a later time about the 2024 election. But anyway, they're going to gerrymander this map, and in order to do so, they got to get into session. So Governor Abbott calls a special session for them to be able to come in and draw these new maps. Well, the Democrats now in Texas have fled the state so that there's not enough people in the legislature to have a quorum, a legally required number of people to begin proceedings. The Texas, they've run. I heard some of them up in Illinois, and Governor Pritzker there, whose family, part of his billionaire fortune comes from the Hyatt hotels. He's putting them up in Hyatts. That's kind of nice. Nice touch there. But that's what has to happen now. We have to play hardball. So these Texas Democrats running to prevent quorum, that's great. Governor Abbott's come back playing hardball, saying, oh, well, there's this little-known codicil in our legal structure here in Texas, at least according to the Attorney General, the corrupt Ken Paxton, who was indicted on numerous charges, bribery, and just corrupt as hell. Anyway, this guy, Mr. Corruption, has an opinion that says if the legislators leave town for too long, he can consider they have vacated their seats, and then he can have brand new elections for people to replace, or he can appoint people, I should say, to replace them. So that's how they're going to break the quorum situation, is they're just going to declare that all the Texas Democrats who left the state are no longer representatives. And we're going to replace them all with Republicans, and then we'll get on with passing this map that gives Trump 5 new seats. In response to this, California Governor Gavin Newsom, who I have numerous problems with, but he's right on this one, is that we need to fight fire with fire. No more bringing a knife to a gunfight. If they're going to supermander their state, we're going to ultramander California. And I'm looking at a map here, and I'll post the link to it in my show notes. They could draw a map in California where all 52 representatives from the state of California would be Democrats. 52 Democrats, 0 Republicans. Every seat would be Harris plus 10. It would eliminate 9 Republicans from the U.S. Congress. Now, if they want to make a couple of GOP vote sinks, this is where you cram all the Republicans into one district or 2. They could make a 50-2 map, eliminate 7 Republicans, but then every district would be Harris plus 14. Why does that matter? Well, if you're making districts that are far more left-leaning, then the representatives representing those districts can have far lefter positions. So Texas wants to supermander to give 5 more states to the Republicans, 5 more seats to the Republicans. Then California, you should ultramander to give 9 more seats to the Democrats. Illinois is looking at doing a supermander. New York is looking at doing a supermander, but other states like Michigan can't. Michigan's one of those states that went past an amendment, constitutional amendment that creates an independent commission for drawing the lines. That should be the goal. But until that is implemented nationwide, there's no point on blue states disarming themselves in this manner. Democrats need to make this explicit. They need to say, look, we're fighting fire with fire. We're going to supermander our state to win the elections. But when we do win the elections, we're going to fight for a federal amendment, a federal law, whatever it takes, to mandate independent redistricting commissions in these states. This political gerrymandering is ridiculous. Eventually, we're going to go non-Euclidian on this. We'll gerrymander every state so that every blue state is all blue congressional representatives and every red state is all red congressional representatives. We'll have Tauruses and Mobius strips for our districts. This is insane. Now, speaking of insane, another national story I wanted to get to has to do with the ongoing fall of the dominoes of the Ivy League, capitulating to threats from dictator Trump, who's going to sue them because, what is it? What's the excuse? Oh, yeah, there was protests for Palestine on their campuses, and Jewish students suffered attacks of anti-Semitism, and so because the universities aren't cracking down on anti-Semitism, Trump's going to sue him for $11 billion or whatever. It doesn't matter what he's suing him for, because the whole point is just to tie him up in court. This is the same thing Trump does with his contractors. You know, stiffs them on the end of the bill and knows that the hassle of going to court for it is too much more hassle than what it's worth. In this case, Trump threatens these universities with loss of federal grants and contracts and such for the research they do that helps the rest of the country. So he threatens that, and then going to threaten to take them to court, and then these universities go, well, it just costs less for us to settle with them than if we had to fight all this in court and lose our and whatever. And as soon as you settle with the guy, he knows he's got you, and then he just starts extracting more out of you. The latest one, I understand, is Cornell University. And boy, I can't wait to listen to Keith Olbermann's podcast on this one. You thought having Bill Maher as an alumnus was a black mark on your record. Yeah, Cornell is going to kick down $100 million. Columbia already kicked down $50 million. I forgot the number on Brown University, because Brown kicked down as well. But Brown basically capitulated by including in their settlement that they would participate in no way with health care for trans kids. That was part of their settlement. Brown threw trans kids under the bus. No more puberty blockers, no more hormones, no surgeries. Not through Brown University. And this is it. Democrats now so eager to throw trans people under the bus, so eager to give up on a persecuted minority. We're supposed to be the champions of the underdogs. We're supposed to be the inclusive party, the civil rights party. And yet, against the advice of the American Academy of Pediatricians, all the other pediatric organizations that have looked into this, the advice of the doctors who are treating these kids, the wishes of the parents that are treating these kids, the wishes of the kids themselves, so many in the Democratic Party are eager to say, no, it's perfectly within the government's purview to deny you the health care you wish. That's okay. And it's so frustrating, the trans issue with Democrats right now, is because you can stand up for people. It's okay to stand up for people, even if other people don't particularly like them or think there's something weird about them or wrong about them. And it doesn't even matter what you think about this, whether you think that trans kids are real and know their gender identity, they know who they are, or whether you think they're making a mistake, whether you think it's peer pressure, whether you think it's, what difference does it make? Even if I grant the bad faith arguments on the other side of they don't know what they're doing, it's all a cult, it's an ideology, so what? There's an ideology out there that lots of people believe in that says you should mutilate the genitals of your infant boys for no good reason, for no health reason, for no other reason that a book about some guy a few thousand years ago said to do it. Genital mutilation. But we think that's okay because the parents want it and they have their freedom of religion. So think of transgender as a religion then, if that's what it takes for you. Think it's a religion. That's their religious belief. Who are you to stop them? That's the thing that bothers me in this whole argument. Who are you to stop them? Yeah, sure. Maybe you think it's wrong. Maybe argue your kid shouldn't do it. Okay. That's your realm. That's fine. But why are we trying to stop people from doing something they wish to do? And to see these universities, Ivy League universities, capitulating like this, I can't imagine being someone who worked their ass off through high school, went through all the AP classes, took the tests, aced the tests, got themselves into Brown, and now have to go around with a degree on their wall from a transphobic university. Although I could say the same to the rest of my family and their degrees from Boise State. I digress. How's that going to look in the future when you're trying to get jobs? And believe me, once this, I'm telling you, someday, either sooner or later, Donald Trump will die and the truth will come out. And you've got your degree that you paid good money for, probably still paying for, from that esteemed Ivy League university that paid protection money to the pedophile. Protection money to the pedophile president and his pedophile protection ring. Boy, the worth of that Ivy League education sure looks good in the long term, doesn't it? Columbia, Cornell, and Brown. All right, turning to my left and looking at the Democratic Party, and I have news to share with you from an amazing Substack, Data for Democracy.substack.com. Adam Bonica, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, who wrote the Substack, and thanks to Oliver Willis for sharing the gift link on this, because it's the story about the Mothership Vortex, an investigation into the firm at the heart of the Democratic spam machine. And for any of you out there like myself who have donated to a Democratic political campaign, you have been deluged with the Democratic fundraising spam. Always getting, text, email, day after day, 5, 6, 7, 20, 50 times a day, it seems, getting these fundraising texts. They're always hyperbolic. Democracy is about to end and your $15 donation is all that can possibly save our country. Won't you give your $15 today? And from this report, I am sad to have to tell you that your $15 donation that goes to these Democratic super PACs, a quarter of it goes to Democratic candidates. And no, I don't mean 25% of it goes to Democratic candidates. I mean an actual quarter. Of the $15 that you send, 24 cents makes it to Democratic candidates. Now, Mr. Bonica here does a fantastic job of unraveling this. He goes into the FEC filings. The firm at the center of this is something called Mothership Strategies. It was founded in 2014 by senior alumni of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, its former digital director, Greg Berlin, and deputy digital director, Charles Starnes. According to Bonica, he writes, quote, during their tenure at the DCCC, the DCCC, they helped pioneer the fundraising model that now dominates Democratic inboxes, a high-volume strategy that relies on emotionally charged, often hyperbolic appeals to compel immediate donations. This model, sometimes called churn and burn, prioritizes short-term revenue over long-term donor relationships. And he's unraveled all of the payments that go through various super PACs out there. He's got a fantastic data graphic that shows that, for example, Dem Strategies Institute funnels its money to Mothership, that groups like End Citizens United funnel its money towards Mothership. And they found that of $678 million raised from individuals, 11 million made it to candidates' campaigns or the national party committees. That's a fundraising efficiency rate of 1.6%. 98.4% of all the money that you're sending into these Democratic super PACs is going to consultants and operational costs. He continues to write how the party looks the other way on this, how this churn and burn is benefiting some of them, some of their PACs, that puts them in the position to want to continue to support this fundraising method. But again, it's pointed out that it might be good for the short term. You might, in the short term, get some money raised from this, but in the long term, we Democrats keep getting peppered with all these fundraising appeals, and then seeing the fecklessness on display, the refusal up until perhaps now to play hardball, and the support among some of these Democrats for Trump's initiatives, voting for things like the Crypto Genius Act, or supporting the nominations of Charles Kushner, and unanimously supporting Marco Rubio. So we've seen this rot. $15 donation, 24 cents makes it to your actual candidates. So let's begin making a change. No more donating to Democratic super PACs. No more donating to these End Citizens United groups and Stop Republicans and Progressive Turnout Project and Elect Democratic Women and the Democratic Strategy Institute and AmeriPAC and Retired Americans PAC and Progressive Takeover and House Majority PAC and Let America Vote PAC. Enough of the PACs. Let's give our money directly to the candidates. Each one of these candidates has their own fundraising as well. And we keep talking about the need to end Citizens United and end the big money in politics. And this is part of the problem here. These Democratic super PACs that are enabling this class of consultants that continue to deliver losing results and continue to thwart the leftward move that is so desperately needed in this party. When you see the rise of young progressives like Zoran Mamdani, this machine has to oppose people like that. Because this machine is the machine of big money, and big money doesn't want leftist politics that taxes big money, that creates better social safety nets so we're not so in the thrall of our employers and big money. And speaking of these young up-and-coming candidates, I want to talk about one of them, Kat Abugazelah. I think I'm close on the name. Anyway, she's running for the Congress, and she's a young influencer, young, attractive woman, and she's getting dismissed, especially in the Republican circles, dismissed as being, just fluff, a fluff candidate who talks a good game but doesn't have any real priorities. That's what they always say about anyone coming out from the left, right? We come from the left and say, hey, everybody ought to have health care, everybody ought to have food, everybody ought to have shelter. Oh, how are you going to pay for that? What kind of pie-in-the-sky pipe dream is that? Meanwhile, we can just throw $1 trillion at the Pentagon and not even blink. So anyway, Kat Abugazelah is getting a lot of attention over on the right because she's a young up-and-comer who's popular and knows how to work the social media. And like the younger people these days, don't subscribe to this antiquated notion of politics being some genteel game between, the two respected sides of the aisle that work for bipartisan consensus and solutions. No. She knows what the game now is fight or die. that you take a gun to a gunfight. And so they're trying to diminish her. One of these Fox News shows was describing her and her politics. I just love how foreign one of these concepts is to the Fox News host reading it, that she can't even pronounce it.
Her campaign site shows that she's running on anti-authoritarianism.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Anti-authoritarianism.
Again. What are you saying?
Anti-authoritarianism.
Oh, anti-authoritarianism. Yeah, I can see why that would be a foreign concept to you at Fox. Go on.
Democrat Party reform. No mass deportations, universal health care, and more. But listen to her when she talks about Medicaid. Watch this.
Everyone deserves health care.
Even illegals?
Every single person in the world deserves
Just for the record, as a candidate, you're for illegal aliens getting Medicaid.
I think everyone in the world deserves
That's a
health
yes.
care.
Okay, that's Fox News playing a clip from CNN where Kat Abugazelah is on saying that everyone deserves health care, and then the resident Republican reptile there, Scott Jennings, says, "Oh, for the record, you're for illegal aliens having health care." And I applaud Kat for her stand that, yes, everyone deserves health care. Everybody. No questions asked. But she didn't respond to the attack the way I wish she would have. Because this is a game that Scott Jennings and Republicans play, is to try to frame it as if you're standing for something awful. Oh, you think illegal aliens should have health care. The proper response, and now her response was to go back into, I think everyone has health care. So now she's kind of in a defensive crouch. The response to something like that is to attack them on the awful thing they're proposing. So when he says, you think illegal aliens should have health care, you say, you think undocumented people should bleed out in a parking lot? You think undocumented people should get diseases and die? You think people that pick your grapes ought to just die? You think people that wash your car should die? This is something I learned in my fights in the drug war, because they always, oh, you think people should be able to get high? You think people, it's like, oh, you think people should go to jail for a plant? You think people should be locked in a cage for a plant? Turn it around. Attack, attack, attack. All right, let's turn to my right and see what the Republican Party is up to, aside from protecting pedophiles. Out there in the state of Utah, apparently they got a terrible drought that's going on, and the governor of Utah, Governor Cox, has again asked Utahns to pray and fast for rain. The governor said, quote, Utah is facing a tough season, and we need both divine help and practical action. Thoughts and prayers now for rain. As Sunday Girl at Sunday Divine on Blue Sky says, nothing says climate policy like skipping brunch and hoping the sky notices. Yeah, I'm going to do my part too. I've tossed some salt over my shoulder and I read some chicken bones. I sacrificed a goat and I cast a spell of great humidity. Hope that helps, Utah. Looking more to the Midwest, we go to the state of Oklahoma, where Ryan Walters is his name. I think on a previous podcast, I called him Ryan Winters. But, apologize to anyone named Ryan Winters out there. Ryan Walters is that state superintendent who was caught watching porn at his work. They had the big office meeting. Other people in the meeting could see his monitor in his office and could see there was naked women on the monitor. And so now Ryan Walters has come out and said it's all a conspiracy. All a conspiracy to get him thrown out because he's so pro-Trump and pro-Jesus.
Board members have a lot to answer for, and so does the governor of the state of Oklahoma. Did he direct these board members to lie about me? Did he direct his board members to go in and disrupt everything in these board meetings?
Yes, Ryan, yes, that's it. The governor is leading an organized conspiracy with the rest of the Republican school board to lie about having seen naked women on your computer, something they reacted to both independently in real time as they saw it happening. And then they directed, the governor in this conspiracy directed other people to go to these council meetings and raise a stink about you watching porn on your computer that you never watched, despite the fact that you are a major anti-porn crusader. That's why we know that you would never watch porn, because you're so vehemently against it. Everyone else is lying about you. I gotta say, someone has definitely learned the lesson of the Trump years. Never admit to anything, never back down, never apologize, always attack. Let's just see if that actually works out when we're talking about someone other than Donald Trump. Next up, our Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, the former governor of North Dakota and Republican presidential candidate, who's continuing to fight on the other front. You know, we've got Trump working to destroy democracy from within, but there's also the other front of destroying the entire planetary climate. Doug Burgum was on one of the shows to discuss how stupid it is that we are investing in solar.
And then, of course, when the sun goes down, you have a catastrophic failure called sunset, and there's no solar energy produced. And yet we're subsidizing these things that are intermittent, unreliable, and expensive.
Hey, baby, why don't you and me grab a bottle of wine, joint, head down to the beach, and enjoy the catastrophic failure. The catastrophic failure of sunset. Once again, batteries exist, you dullard. Oh my God. Time for one more Republican. Rick Scott, the senator from Florida. You may remember him from his Medicare scam where he ripped off Medicare for millions and millions of dollars. Yeah, it's this no-good scumbag. He is upset because there's a proposal to pass a law to make it so people like him who are in the Senate and have direct control over the laws that would affect the various companies on the stock exchange, he's upset that there'd be a law preventing him from trading stock.
So this idea that we're going to attack people because they make money is wrong. Is absolutely wrong. We should cherish all of our different backgrounds. Every one of us has a different background. I've got a business background. But what I was just accused of is making money, and somehow I can't be fair and do things the right way. So I think it's disgusting what is going on here.
No, nobody's buying this pivot, this framing that we're attacking people who want to make money, that somehow we hate the desire to become rich, that somehow making money is a sin. No. You don't get to pivot off of that. Nobody is saying making money is a problem. What we're saying is cheating is wrong. We don't let players bet on the games that they play in. We don't allow that in sports because it gives them financial incentive to throw the game. Similarly, we don't let senators and representatives trade stocks because they can make decisions and votes that affect the game. You're trying to cheat, Senator Scott, again. We're going to go regional to my neck of the woods up here in the Northern California, Southern Oregon section of the United States. A story coming out of San Francisco reported by Mission Local. And while it's a local story, it does bode to the national trend of venture capital coming in and stripping companies for parts and ruining them to the point where those companies go bankrupt. And this is the latest story. This one has to do with a local coffee shop called Phil's Coffee, Philz. Phil's Coffee, and a Los Angeles-based private equity firm called Freeman Spogli and Company is going to buy Phil's Coffee for $145 million. Now, the board members of Phil's, former CEO Phil Jaber and his son Jacob Jaber, and representatives from the investment firms, Summit Partners and EPG Growth, and CEO Mahesh Sadarangani, sorry about the pronunciation there, will receive payouts or bonuses from the deal. Okay, so Angeles private equity firm buying out Phil's Coffee, $145 million. All the CEOs, all the people at the top getting big bonuses off of that. That's not news. What is news to me in this story? From Mission Local, quote, those who hold common stock, like employees who bought stock during or after their years at the company, will see their stock canceled under the terms of the agreement, making those investments effectively worthless. Quote, all common stock will be canceled for no consideration, and all options will be canceled and extinguished for no consideration. So this is employees who bought stock in the company, some of them tens of thousands of dollars. This one employee said spent $12,000 on shares of stock in this company. And now they're just canceled. They can just do that. Just cancel the stock. Just wipe it out, zero, because you're just the little guys. You're just the workers. You're just the people who built the company and made it into something worth selling for $145 million. You're out of luck. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. All right, you got me. That's not a Grateful Dead baseline. That's our regular country baseline to signify our recurring segment on Boycott Idaho. Reasons why you should avoid the handmade state, now with a new 73rd reason to boycott the handmade state. You can find all the reasons at radicalruss.com/Idaho. And according to the new laws that went into effect on July 1st in the handmade state, is now one of the states that's requiring age verification for access to internet pornography. House Bill 498 requires that any website hosting pornography must acquire from its viewers proof of age documentation, such as scanning in one's driver's license or credit card to the porn site, or by allowing the porn site to access one's social media account. The law is modeled after a similar law in Texas and ones adopted in 15 others. It passed with unanimous votes, aside from 3 House and 2 Senate absences, because who wants to vote against keeping porn away from minors? Me. I would have voted to kill this bill. First of all, it does not keep minors away from porn. Anybody who has a 20 in their birth year is well aware of this little technology called virtual private networking that disguises and encrypts your internet traffic. With a VPN, a kid in, say, Nampa, Idaho, would beam his request through a VPN server in, say, Seattle, Washington, and as far as the porn site knows, that's a computer in Seattle to send porn to without asking for ID. Second, scrupulous porn sites, and yes, such things exist, they're going to follow these state laws, but not by asking their viewers for their personally identifying information. They, like Pornhub, are just going to ban viewers who aren't using VPNs to disguise that they're from Idaho. But the unscrupulous porn sites, or just scammers who are fishing for your info by pretending to be a scrupulous porn site, hell, they would be more than happy to collect your driver's license and credit card and social media info and use that for a range of crimes, from identity theft to sexual extortion. Third, this is clearly suppression of free speech for adults in the guise of protecting children. Given the free-range fascism we're experiencing these days, asking adults to provide a personal record of every porn video they've watched to a corporate entity that might be compelled to release that information through a subpoena from the Trump Justice Department, well, that's going to have a bit of a chilling effect. Fourth, as Hustler's Larry Flynt once remarked about his First Amendment case at the Supreme Court, quote, "If the First Amendment will protect a scumbag like me, it will protect all of you." End quote. Porn is the canary in the coal mine for what an oppressive regime will do to other dangerous forms of speech. Soon you're going to need age verification to learn about transgender info, or to research communism, or any subject that the government deems too harmful to young minds. Ask Socrates. Fifth, this government overreach is unnecessary because actual effective tools at blocking minors from viewing pornography exist, even if they are using a VPN. However, and God, I hope this isn't controversial, they require the application of parenting. Yeah, parents can choose between many free and paid software packages that block porn at your home Wi-Fi router and at your child's phone, tablet, laptop, or desktop computer. So, in short, Idaho, you just enacted a law that doesn't stop kids with VPNs from visiting scrupulous porn sites that ban illegal material. You've funneled business to unscrupulous porn sites that traffic in illegal material. You've created a new opportunity for phishing sites to steal identities and commit extortion. You've opened the door to censorship and tracking of other kinds of information. And you've given parents an excuse to not pay attention to securing their home internet at the router and device level. Today in the Radical Rant, I want to talk about a meme that's been going around on Blue Sky, this idea that the left needs its own Stephen Miller. What would the left's Stephen Miller be up to? And there's problems with that analogy because Stephen Miller is a psychopath. I don't think we really need psychopaths on the left. But the idea, what would a Democratic Party that fights, that bends every rule, that destroys every norm and tradition in order to enact power, what would that left be doing? And there was a fantastic answer out there, long thread by Padraig2112. He goes by at isomorphism.net on Blue Sky. What would the left's Stephen Miller do? Here's some of the things he suggests. Number one, leverage the DOJ to ruthlessly investigate corruption in the federal judiciary, starting with a reopening of Kavanaugh's file to find out who paid off all Brett Kavanaugh's loans, and active indictments against Clarence Thomas for corruption. That's the minimum we should be doing in the Supreme Court. We should also be packing the Supreme Court to 13 justices. We should explicitly say we are doing so, that the 4 justices are going to replace Kavanaugh, replace Gorsuch, and replace Coney Barrett, who were all installed by an illegitimate president. A president who should never have been elected in 2016 because of the collusion with Russians and because he was committing fraud on the American people with all the catch and kill hush money pay up cover-up stories. So he should never have been elected in 2016 in the first place to even have the opportunity to put in those 3 judges. And a fourth one as a penalty for Mitch McConnell stymieing Obama's pick when it was his turn to pick a Supreme Court justice. We should make it explicit that we are doing this in a partisan way, purposefully, to undo Republican fuckery. That's what voters would get behind right now. I told the story earlier about that Mothership Vortex and the endless fundraising for $15. 24 cents only goes to the candidates. Part of what pisses us off about all of that fundraising is seeing all of our money go into these Democratic super PACs and not getting this level of fight. Not getting a party that is partisan. That's the whole point of having a party, to be partisan. Number 2, open criminal investigations into GOP Congress critters who went to Russia. Yeah, remember July 4th a few years ago? Ron Johnson and some of these other guys on our nation's Independence Day sat and dined with Vladimir Putin. We need an investigation into that. 3, arrest all of the Trump family for violating the Emoluments Clause. Impound all of their money. Seize all of their assets that were leased to or used by the federal government during either of his administrations. Seize the oligarchs' money. 4, call Eric Prince into the office. You know, Eric Prince, the Blackwater, former, it used to be called Blackwater, now XE, now I don't know what the hell it's called. The mercenary Eric Prince. Call him into the office and tell him he's got 24 hours to leave the country or he's getting deployed to Ukraine. Number 5, call Saudi Arabia and tell them the U.S. wants enough evidence to put Jared in the hoosegow for 1,000 years or arms shipments halt immediately. It's about time we start strong-arming Bonesaw down there, the killer, the murderer of a man on American soil, a journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. Long past time that Jared went to prison for that. Number 6, call every domestic gun manufacturer and tell them we are halting all exports of U.S. manufactured firearms until they agree to a domestic firearms legislation package and agree to disband the NRA. Yes, get serious about this. And for the folks out there on the right, Democrats are coming to take the guns. No, we're coming to take the guns from the crazy people. We both agree that there's a problem with crazy people with guns, right? What I always hear from the right, it's a mental health issue. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. Yeah, people with guns kill people. And so let's keep the people who kill people with guns from having the guns. 7, open federal antitrust investigations into every automaker's agreement with car dealerships. Now, this one was new to me. I didn't have this on my radar as like, what's going on there? But the more I looked into it, yeah, there's some collusion and antitrust stuff going on there for sure. 8, ruthlessly weaponize the IRS and target high-wealth individuals, starting with anyone who donated to the Trump campaign. Abso-freaking-lutely, the IRS should be weaponized against anyone in the 9-figure range at least. Disband ICE. Simple. Hell, I'd go farther. I'd get rid of the Department of Homeland Security. It's become the Department of Fatherland Security. They're openly tweeting Nazi memes. Disband them. And remember back in the day after George Floyd, we were all talking about, disband ICE, abolish ICE, and that was so radical. Oh my God, what a radical thought. The latest surveys show 61% of Democrats are behind disbanding ICE altogether, just abolishing ICE altogether. Not only should we abolish ICE, everybody working for ICE should be facing tribunals, should be facing The Hague for war crimes. 10, downsize BP and fire everybody on ideological lines. I'm not sure what BP is in this reference, so I'm going to skip that one. But number 11 definitely caught my attention. Arrest Cliven Bundy. Maybe you forgot about Cliven Bundy. He was the Nevada rancher who declared that he really didn't need to pay taxes to the federal government, and he set up a standoff with people from Bureau of Land Management, a standoff that was armed where Bundy had snipers posted to take out federal agents. This happened during the Obama administration, and again, a huge mistake of Obama was always letting these people get away with crossing red lines. It was Cliven Bundy on the domestic red line. It was Vladimir Putin in Crimea on the international, the foreign red line. You let these people cross red lines, and the next thing you know, you got a January 6th. Had the federal government come down on Cliven Bundy, arrested these people and put them away, maybe we wouldn't be in the situation we are now. All of our problems can be traced to not seriously vanquishing evil when we see it. Number 12, arrest Elon Musk, nationalize Starlink, and SpaceX, have the Department of Transportation recall all Teslas as unsafe for the roads. Yeah, it's crazy that we have ceded our American space program to Elon Musk. Insane that we've ceded so much of satellite telecommunications to Elon Musk. Not only should we do all of this, we should force Paramount to go back to the Star Trek series and movies, and anytime they mention Elon Musk in a positive tone, it should be revamped for somebody else's name. I want Elon Musk erased from Star Trek canon. Number 13, tell Congress we want a national moratorium on states passing local taxes on resource extraction on federal lands. Absolutely, time to protect our federal lands. Number 14, revoke the nonprofit status of the Federalist Society. Hell, I would go farther than that. I would put it out there, direct threat to every mega church, every nonprofit out there. You even hint at getting political, and you're getting taxed. No more of this wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And hell, now with this administration encouraging politicking from the pulpit. No more of that. If there's even a hint that you're getting political, we revoke your 501c3, you revoke your nonprofit status as a church, and you pay taxes like the rest of us. You want to play in the secular political pool, you got to pay the secular political bills.
And it goes down smooth. Hey!
Well, that's all the time we've got for this week's Smoke Session. The Radical Russ Show is produced, directed, researched, written, recited, posted, and catered by me, Radical Russ Belville, and governed by Creative Commons share-alike licensing. News clips and social media posts are reproduced under fair use copyright laws for commentary and analysis. My main theme is We Love the Herb by Herb Nation. Interstitial music this week is me playing the bass lines in order from Steve Carlisle's WKRP Cincinnati and the Grateful Dead's Touch of Grey, Shakedown Street, Truckin', Casey Jones, Fire on the Mountain, and Friend of the Devil. Which brings us to our post-credits scene. So I saw a post fly through my social media the other day that was a picture of a dude out in the African savannah, and he has shot a lion. He's in that trophy hunter position, showing off the fact that he killed this beautiful beast. And I wish I could be there to talk to guys like that when they show off their trophy hunting picture. Like, you show me that picture of a lion, and I'm like, you're like, yeah, I killed him in Africa. I'm like, oh, you survived a battle with a lion? A battle? Yeah, I must say, killing a lion with your bare hands, that's impressive. Bare hands? No. Oh, okay, I guess a knife is still pretty impressive. A knife? No, I shot him. With a pistol? No, a rifle. At a distance? Oh, yeah. And you brag about this? Also, there's a post going out about the terrible male loneliness epidemic out there. How young, white, male, straight, cisgender boys just aren't getting laid. How the left isn't paying attention to how the white boys aren't getting laid, and so the right has come in and offered them manosphere. It's all our fault. We're not helping the straight, cis, white boys get laid. Well, as a former straight, cis, white boy, the former is the boy part, let me tell you, we weren't getting laid much back then either. But it wasn't just the white boys, it was the black boys and the Mexican boys. It was everybody. And not just the straight boys, the gay boys were having a hell of a time getting laid. It was really tough for them. So I don't know why this is suddenly something so new, or why we need to pay attention to why these kids aren't getting laid. But guys, let me tell you one thing. The manosphere influencers, the pickup artist types, the Andrew Tates, they're not gonna get you laid. Why would they want to get you laid when them having an audience depends on having a whole bunch of frustrated virginal incels? It's kind of like the same reason you don't see a whole lot of skinny people drinking Diet Coke. And finally, one last hit here before we go. Had to be in line in my small town up here in the mountains recently, and I was shocked when I looked over to see this woman standing there wearing kind of a overall shorts backpack. And I noticed right there on her right calf, a huge, I mean literally the full size of the leg, or the lower leg, a full-sized iron cross tattoo with a big bold swastika right in the middle of it. I had to stand in line with a Nazi. And as usual, the kind of specimen of caucasity who just obviously reeks of supremacy. It's just amazing to me. And God bless my lady love, because, I noticed it, and she's trying to keep me calm so I don't cause a scene in a small little town. And he said, well, maybe that's from her past. Maybe that was in the past. I'm like, bitch, if I was in my past, I'd be wearing calf length socks. I wouldn't be openly flaunting that. So yeah, had to stand in line with a Nazi, had to keep my mouth shut, because we do live in a small town and repercussions are possible. And really, what good would it have done me to have called her out on that? I don't know. But it's getting rough out here. You can contact me by email at radicalruss@gmail.com. Call my message line at 877-RUSS-420. That's 877-877-420. And reach me on social media on Blue Sky as radicalruss.com and nowhere else. You can support this podcast financially by donating at Radical Russ on Venmo, Rad Russ on Cash App, or via PayPal on my website, oust.com. Get this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, my website, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and until next week, take care of each other.
You plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you